What's up, everybody? Straw Hats are cool here, and we are finally back with another market watch. I know it's been a little bit of a wait on this one. For a while there, I was doing these market watches almost every week, but I have fallen off a little bit. I do think the market itself has calmed down a little bit as well, but I want to get back to doing these a little bit more regularly. Once or twice a month for sure. I'm hoping to make this kind of a bi-weekly thing. But anyways, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Before we get into this video, I do just want to, as always, thank everyone who's been supporting the channel as of recently. We did recently pass 2,400 subscribers, and that's a pretty big milestone for me, so it really does mean a lot. I appreciate everyone who's liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. Really, like I said, words cannot express how much it means to me. You know, I started doing these videos almost a year ago now, about 11 months ago today, just about, and we've grown a lot more than I ever could have hoped. So, you know, like I said, the words can't really express how grateful I am for everyone who's been along with me for this journey, and I'm hoping that over this summer we can get to uploading content a little more consistently. On the topic of that, kind of want to talk briefly just about what my hopes are for the channel moving forward over the next couple weeks. So for a while, my goal was to upload a gameplay video Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays with different leaders, and then do market watches on the weekend. Wasn't super great about upholding to that schedule. During the school year, I was busy, but now I don't really have any good excuse for it. It just hasn't, you know, been at the top of my priority list, I guess. I am getting married here in the next couple weeks, so that's been taking a bit of my time as well. But I think we've got all that stuff sorted out now, so exciting stuff ahead for me. But anyways, my hope now is we're going to do things a little bit differently. I think I'm going to make market watches. I'm going to try to do them on Wednesdays and make them a bi-weekly thing, hopefully. Might not be every other week, but at least once or twice a month is kind of my hope there. And then as far as the gameplay goes, I think my plan now is, because my videos do tend to run a little longer, because I do like to talk about the deck a little bit more in depth before we dive into the gameplay. So I think what I'm going to try and do moving forward is there will be 2 different decks each week. On Mondays, I'm going to try and do a new deck, the deck profile card by card, and then a game or 2 in that video. And then on the following day, so for Monday, on Tuesday, I'll do another video that's just going to be some more games with the deck we covered on the previous day. And then we're going to try and do a similar thing Thursday, Friday. So it will be more videos, which might sound like it's a harder commitment for me, but it'll be less decks, and it's kind of like I'm going to be breaking up one video into 2 is kind of my hope, because like I said, I know they do tend to go a little longer. So we'll see how that goes. I think it should end up saving me a little bit of time. I'll just have to come up with a new kind of thumbnail design for the gameplay, the second video for each deck. But that's kind of my hope moving forward. I'm also hoping, I need to talk a little bit more with my LGS about it, but I want to start streaming my locals on Thursday, so I wouldn't be participating anymore, but I'd get to commentate and stream that, which I think would be a lot of fun. So that's my hope there. So that's kind of what I got planned for the channel over the next couple of weeks, so I hope you all look forward to that. If you're not already, please do take a look at our Discord. Link for that will be down in the video description. We'll be doing we do giveaways over there periodically, and I'm trying to become a little bit more active in there, just talking a little bit more about the game and market in general, as I do have a lot of fun doing that. So if you want to check that out, link will be in the video description. And then lastly, if you plan on buying any cards on TCG Player, any cards mentioned in this video, do please consider using my affiliate link. That will also be down in the video description. If you use that link and buy any cards off of TCG Player, a small percentage of your purchase will go towards supporting me in the channel. But if you want to support me, the best thing you can do is just watch the video to the end, like and subscribe. I know maybe watching a video like this to the end is a little hard, as I know my market watches, I do tend to ramble a little bit, but you know, that's just kind of how I am. So if you're not into that, you know, maybe you can find some other market watch to watch, but this is kind of how I roll here. We ramble a little bit, and I know a lot of you still enjoy that as well. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right into the market watch. Starting things off, of course, with our chase cards. As a whole, while we go out throughout this video, you're probably going to see that overall, the prices on most cards are starting to trend downward a little bit, which we have been seeing over the last couple months. But I think now the game's getting in a bit of a healthier state. We're seeing some reprints for previous sets hit store shelves again, which is really nice to see. So as far as our manga rares goes, at the top we still have our Monkey D. Luffy from OP07. Currently, it's about $3,000. That is a verified listing with pictures, so probably a pretty legit listing. We've been seeing some sell right around that $3,100 price point as well, so I expect that one will sell relatively soon, as we are seeing them sell at about that price point. So it is down quite a bit from where it was. I think for a while it was about 4 and it started dropping down to about 35, but we're slowly coming back down, which is good. Though of course it is still a very expensive card, being that about $3,100 right now. So not one a lot of people are going to be going out of their way to pick up, but if you're a hardcore collector, absolutely a must-have for the collection. OP07 Luffy also coming down a bit as well. This one really held strong for quite a while at about $2,000, maybe a little closer to $1,800. But we are starting to see a little bit of a dip here slowly over time. Things are coming back down. And we have also gotten some of the reprints for OP07, so I've been seeing that one back on store shelves again as well. Fortunately, a lot of LGS are still marking it up quite a bit, but it is starting to get back out there, and some of the LGSs are pretty cool about, you know, holding to MSRP, which is really nice if you are around one of those game stores. Next up, we got Shanks, about $1,700 right now. So again, not a lot of movement for this one. I want to say Shanks has been pretty stable at about that $1,800 price point, which is, I guess, good to see. Though we did have, like I said, some reprints of OP01 start hitting store shelves again, so maybe we'll see this one dip down just a little bit. Though at this point in time, I don't expect it to fluctuate all too much. I was very fortunate. My friend was looking to pick up some of the championship cards, specifically the Borsellino and Kuzan that I had, and we were able to make a bit of a deal. So I was actually able to finally get my hands on a manga Shanks. I did have to let go of my championship cards, but I wasn't super attached to them, and I'm definitely a lot more, you know, into collecting those manga rares. So now that I have that one in the collection, I have kind of been fiending a little bit for the ones that I'm still missing. So that's been a lot of fun. Next up, we got the Ace. Again, pretty stable about that, you know, $1,000 price point. I haven't seen too much about reprints for this one. I think I saw maybe some sleeves hitting store shelves again, potentially. I don't know if that was legit or not, but I did see a photo on Twitter recently where it looked like there had been restocks for most of the sets. So maybe some more OP02 hitting store shelves as well, so could make the price drop a little bit. But again, at this point, most of the products out there, so I expect this one's going to be, you know, pretty stable at where it's at for the time being. Zoro's one that's kind of dropped tremendously since OP06 released. I want to say around the start it was about double this, closer to 1,600, and then as time has gone on, it has slowly dropped down, currently sitting at about $800. Fortunately, was able to pick one of these up as well for a good price. Now that they're, you know, like I said, dropping down in price. So if you're looking to pick up a manga Zoro, might be an okay time to do it. I'm not sure if it'll get much lower than this. I think some people are a little bit surprised by the price on this one. They figured it being Zoro be a little bit closer to Luffy, but nowhere near it. You know, is still one of the more expensive, but I want to say this is about the average price for a manga rare at this time. Next up, we got the Law and the Kid from OP05. The Law's about $850, whereas Kid's a little bit closer to $700. So Kid continuing to drop down in price a little bit, whereas Law's held pretty steady once it had that initial drop. Closer to release, this card was, I want to say, closer to $1,500, but for the past couple months, I want to say it's been right around that $800 to $900 price point, so not much has changed there. Kid was also there about that $800 to $900 price point, but we are starting to see this one drop down a little bit from its market price, which we can still see is about $900, so dropping down a little bit from there. The Chopper, on the other hand, has actually been going up a little bit in price. I want to say on release, this one was about $600, and now we're looking at about $800 for this listing here. But we do have some listings with pictures that are about $700. So I want to say it's realistically, you can probably get this card around, you know, that $700, $750 price point, though some of those verified listings are pushing $800 as well. And then on the cheaper side, you've got your Soga King and Sabo. These two have kind of been just neck and neck for as long as they've been out on the market, since they released. Soga King initially was around $200, but since it's gone up to about $400. There was a time when I want to say it got to about $600, which we can see potentially being reflected by that market price there. But over time, it started to drop back down again, and we're about $400. Same thing for the Sabo here, though really, if you're looking at the prices here, this one's from a seller with one sale, the listing at $400. If you're looking for a verified seller near mint, you're looking about closer to $550. So really, I think, you know, Sabo at this point is valued higher than Soga King, which I think is to be expected. I know playability does not play a huge factor in the price of these cards, but one of my friends and I know others who do, you know, play mangas in their deck, and Manga Sabo is probably the biggest suspect for that, as it is probably the most playable of the cards that have manga rares at the time of this recording. With all that said, though, that wraps things up for our manga rares. Let's go ahead and jump into our main sets. Doing things a little bit differently, so we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But starting things off with our sealed product for OP01, we're at about $300 now. Like I keep saying, there have been some reprints surfacing for OP01, hitting local game stores and potentially even store shelves as well. I've seen a couple blisters in Targets. Well, I haven't personally, but I've seen photos of people sharing that they have found blisters in their local Targets, so be on the lookout for that. If you're looking to pick up some blister packs for OP01, maybe you'll get lucky and be able to pick one of those up. But with the reprints coming around, the sealed price has dropped pretty hard. It's dropped by about $200. Last I checked, you know, they were here at about this $480 price point, but now we're looking a little bit closer to $300. Still a lot for sealed product, but a huge drop from where it was. I know there have been talk about One Piece being like a pump and dump, and maybe that's the case, but I think, you know, overall, for the general community, this is a good thing. But if you're an investor, this definitely is going to sting a little bit. So for our leader cards, not a whole lot of change. We're continuing to see Law drop down a little bit in price. But the Zoro and Doflamingo we're actually seeing go up a little bit in price. Doflamingo, I'm sure, is just because we get quite a lot of support for the deck in OP07, and then we're getting more support in the new starter deck for the Doflamingo. It's like kind of going to be a reprint starter deck a little bit, so it's going to have a lot of the cards. There's going to be one for each color. Doflamingo is going to be the representative for blue, so you're going to get, you know, a new art for the Doflamingo leader, as well as some new cards that are supposed to help support that archetype. And a lot of the cards that are being released in that starter deck that we've seen right now do look like they might be able to give Dofi a fighting chance. I know we all said that about the stuff we got in OP07, but I think with the continued support, Doflamingo may eventually get there. And for that reason, we are seeing the price trend upward a little bit. So while it's not been super successful in OP07, maybe once we get those starter decks here in the next month or so, I'm not sure when they release over in Japan, but I think it's pretty soon. I want to say sometime in July. So it should be relatively soon that we get the full deck list revealed. And maybe once those release, we'll start seeing Doflamingo be able to perform a little bit better. As far as Zoro goes, though, we are seeing this one go up in price a little bit as well. There has been a new build of Zoro, that was introduced in OP08 with some of the cards we got there. Specifically, a lot of that Drum Kingdom and Animal support that was supposed to be geared towards the Chopper leader. However, I think Zoro is able to utilize a lot of that support very well as well, with a fairly similar effect to the Chopper, just being a monocolored 5-life leader, which ultimately I think does help the leader quite a bit, as I don't think there were any green cards that really helped in supporting the Chopper deck at all. But if I'm forgetting something there, be sure to let me know down in the comments. But people are calling it Zuro, running a lot of those, like I said, animal cards, a lot of the choppers and whatnot, being able to flood the board extremely quickly and consistently fill the board back up each turn, while also maintaining hand size, similar to how it worked in OP02, 3, and so on, but maybe a little bit more efficient than that, as you are able to have, you do have these bodies that, like the 3-cost chopper, I want to say, from like OP04, that can play another animal with a power of 3,000 or less, I want to say. So a lot of cards like that, and the addition of the OP08 chopper being able to search top 5 and then play a card, I think does help the deck. Not sure how it's doing in the large scale events, but there was a little bit of hype around that deck upon release. Other than that, though, not a lot of change for our leader cards here. Everything else about the same. I want to say Luffy might actually be dropping down a little bit in price as well, though, so that's nice to see. So here's where I'm going to try and do things, like I said, a little bit differently. So I've got kind of a breakdown for just like each color from each set, and we're just going to briefly talk about some of the cards that are moving either up or down for the respective colors. So for OP01 red, Nami's, I want to say, it's dropped down a little bit in price. Yeah, for a while this one was pushing $300, but like I said, we're getting those reprints, so I expect most of OP11 to be trending downwards just a little bit as a result of those reprints. When you see the price of sealed product start to dip, you can also expect a lot of those singles to dip in price as well, because the product is becoming slightly more accessible. So Nami on a bit of a low, so if this is one you've not yet picked up for your collection, honestly at $226, I think this is a pretty fair price to pick it up at. Nami's one of those cards as well that can always sneak back into the format whenever we get some more red Straw Hat support, or really just a leader that is able to utilize multicolored Straw Hats that is of the red color, where red is one of the colors. Just being a searcher for the, main characters of the series, I think just inherently makes Nami one of the, card that's going to have the best longevity moving forward, just because searchers are always good, and searching out Straw Hat Pirates is probably the best type in the game to search out. Maybe not at this given point, but we're going to be getting more Straw Hat support sooner or later. As far as Zoro goes, this one's been pretty stagnant. It did jump up a little bit. I want to say EB, once Red Purple Law started seeing some more play. Not all Red Purple Law lists are playing this card in their deck, but it is definitely a popular choice. A lot of lists are running it at 2. And Red Purple Law is not going anywhere anytime soon. Definitely in contention for best deck in format right now. Well, not right now. I want to say that's probably still Sakazuki, but going into OP07 for sure. I think it's probably between Red Purple Law and the Black Yellow Luffy starter deck 13 leader. And then going into OP08, it looks like Red Purple Law is pretty undisputed the best deck in the format. So curious to see if we get any bans for the deck anytime soon, as it is kind of looking pretty similar to how Sakazuki was dominating kind of in those early OP06, OP05 formats. So we'll see where things go, but Red Purple Law is definitely going to be a bit of a boogeyman of the format for the time being, and Zoro is a card you definitely can run in that deck. Same thing with Sanji. Saw a little bit of a jump back up in price here not so long ago. It does look like things are starting to drop back down now. I think for the current format, and maybe even going into OP07, Sanji could be a good addition for the Red Purple Law deck, as it does help your NL matchup a little bit. Most of the time it's just a 2k counter, but being able to play around the starve strategy is a pretty big plus for the deck. Though I will say, I think going into OP07, this just gets replaced with the purple Sanji if you were even running this. Definitely a very, very good card for the red purple law deck. Your Luffy and your Shanks, not a lot of movement there. Otama, of course, still one of the best 2k counters in red, and one that is definitely played in red purple law decks. So with red purple law moving into the position of potentially the best deck in the format, we might see the price on Otama go up a little bit, but at this point in time, I think Otamas are pretty stable. We've seen it fluctuate between, I want to say, anywhere between $5 and $7 for the last couple months. And we are currently on the lower side, so potentially could see this one go back up in price a little bit moving forward into OP07, and as we get closer to OP08, where it looks like law is going to be extremely dominant. But personally, I think it's probably going to be pretty stable at that $5 price point, which is still pretty expensive for an uncommon, but you know, it's good in most red decks, so I would say if you're planning to play red, probably a good investment. Radical Beams, about $2 or $3 right now. Dropped down a little bit, so. But as far as OP01 red goes, that's about it. Let's briefly talk about green. As far as your green stuff goes, there's not a whole lot we need to talk about. I think the big one here is the Eustace Captain Kidd. This card does see a lot of play in Bonnie decks, and Bonnie I do think is going to be one of the better decks from OP07. Definitely think it's probably on the lower side, but as far as the playable decks go, I definitely think Bonnie is one of the new ones that is introduced from OP07, and you are going to want your copies of Eustace Captain Kidd for that. So if you're planning to play Bonnie, might be a good time to pick these up, because if we start seeing Bonnie perform, there's a good chance that these Eustace Captain Kidds end up going up a little bit more in price as well. Right now, the SR itself is trending downwards a little bit, but I do want to say the alternate art is trending upwards, so there are people pretty excited for that Bonnie deck, so it's something you're looking to play. I would probably pick up your Kidds now since they are going down a little bit. But your Yamato's, Laws, they aren't really seeing play in any decks right now. Maybe you'll see a cheeky Perona player playing the 5-cost Yamato as another card that they can play off of the 4-cost Fiori, which was introduced in EB01. But I think for the most part, you're just seeing them play the 5-cost 7k Mountain God that was introduced in EB01, just a vanilla 5/7. But I think the main reason they're running that is a body that is a little bit trickier for red purple law to deal with, as really they can only comfortably deal with 6k bodies for only one card, unless they are of course running the 2-cost Fire Fist from OP05. Izo still on the more expensive side for a 2k, and then Momo, you know, going up there in price as well, about $3 right now. Definitely cards you're going to want if you're planning to run the new Wano Perona deck, which gets legs going into OP07. Really, the only thing the deck gets is the addition of the 2k Otama, but having another Searcher and another 2k that is of the Wano type definitely does help the deck a lot. It's also a very good target for the You Can Be My Samurai, which is a card that does see play in that deck. So that's about it for green. Really the big one I would say you want to pick up if you don't have them is Kidd, but you're only really going to want to pick that up if you're planning to play Bonnie into the OP07 format. For blue, I don't think there's anything you necessarily need to buy from blue right now. Maybe if you're planning to play the new Boa Hancock leader, you might want like the Doflamingos. That card is very, very good. I don't know if the deck runs the Mihawks. I haven't looked too much into the Boa Hancock deck from OP07. Though again, of the new leaders, it's one of the ones that does have some potential. Again, I think it's on the lower side, a little bit lower than Bonnie. I think Bonnie has more potential than the Boa Hancock leader, but it is one that I think, you know, is a viable leader in the OP07 format. There will be tops with it. Well, I don't know if anyone's gonna, you know, win an event with it, but I do think it's a deck that has a lot of potential at top. I do think it has an okay red purple law matchup, and I do think that's probably going to be the most represented deck going into OP07. So you may want to pick up your Doflamingos. Your regular rares are getting up there in price, with a market price of about $5 right now. But you know, there are listings there a little bit less than that, but for the most part we're looking at a little bit over $5 for the Flamingo, which for a rare is relatively expensive, but it is also from the first set. So maybe if you want to pick up the alternate arts, probably not a bad idea, but for the most part your blue stuff is just all going down in price. A little bit of a jump there for the Doflamingo, but I know that Mihawk has dropped pretty considerably in price. There was a time when this one, as you can see here, about 3 months ago, was about 90 bucks. Now we're sitting about 50 bucks. And honestly, if you're just a collector and you don't have this one, I think it's a great time to pick this one up. One of the best looking cards from the first set, in my opinion. Absolutely incredible art on this one. And the Boa Hancock coming down as well. This one was well over $100 a couple months ago, but now we're looking at about 80 bucks, which ain't too bad. To be honest, I may end up picking up another copy or two of this one just for my personal collection. That's it for blue. You know, like I said, blue is I think blue is the color that's in the weirdest spot right now, where they're just, you know, the Boa Hancock deck's pretty good, but there just hasn't quite been enough synergy or support for any specific leader to make blue kind of go above and beyond, be able to rival some of those other colors like black and yellow, or even the red and purple that you've got with the red purple law right now. So hopefully someday blue gets the supports it needs to really, you know, stand up to the rest of the format, but for the time being, you know, there's not a lot going on for blue right now. As far as purple goes, kind of similar to blue here. These purple cards just are not very good. Obviously, red purple law is kind of bringing back the playability for purple, but as a whole, your purple animal kingdom stuff not seeing too much play. We did get the new king leader from OP08, but unfortunately, it looks like most of those OP08 leaders are not really doing anything right now. Maybe people just need a little bit more time to play with it, but for the time being, the king leader, the Marco leader, seems like they're a bit underwhelming in comparison to other leaders that we currently have in the format. Maybe if there are some bans or restrictions in place to kind of keep red purple law in check, there's more room for those decks to see success. But for the time being, unfortunately, King was not able to get there. But maybe moving forward, if we get some more support or some bans get put in place, we can see decks like King start to thrive. For right now, I don't really think you need anything from set 1 purple. So that's it for OP01. Let's go ahead and jump into OP02. Starting things off with our sealed product. We are seeing a little bit of a dip on our OP02 sealed product as well, though not nearly as much of a drop as we saw for OP01. But again, for OP02, I don't think we've been seeing like booster boxes back in LGSs again yet. We have seen a little bit for OP01 though. Starting these off with our leader cards, Edward Newgate kind of still, you know, at the top end, but we actually see Smoker kind of taking the spotlight here. And I think the reason for this, because my friend's been hyping it up quite a lot, is we're basically going to get a mini format for about 1 week in between bans. So we get the bans on Great Eruption, Sakazuki, and the Reject. So in between that and the release of OP07 being legal, we're going to have this 1 week format where we'll have, I think, 2 tournaments where the bans will be in place, but OP07 will not be legal yet. And it's looking like Smoker is going to be a pretty solid deck for that format, so it could be the reason we're seeing it jump back up in price on this as well. And if it's seeing success in that format, could even potentially see success going into OP07. Definitely something to be curious about. I think with Sakazuki leaving the format, it leaves a lot more room for the older mono black leaders to start seeing success again. We know we've got the Lucci from OP07, which is going to be a very, very powerful deck. But Smoker also pretty similar to that Zoro, and just being able to get -1 cost. You just don't necessarily have to attack to get that effect off first. I think the place where Smoker will struggle is just getting to be able to fill their trash a little bit more consistently to fuel, you know, your powerful Gecko Morias and whatnot. But I definitely think it's a deck that could have legs, and we did see the price on this one go up pretty considerably. It's almost doubled in price over the last week or so, so definitely one you want to keep your eye on. As far as red stuff goes, like I said, when I was talking about the purple stuff in set 1, unfortunately it's looking like the Marco leader not too good. I know there was initially a lot of speculation that it was going to be Sakazuki 2.0, but I know myself, and I think a lot of the community also agreed that while on paper it looks fairly similar to Sakazuki, the blue and red color combinations just kind of cheeks in comparison to a color combination like blue-black, with blue having some of the best removal options in the game and then access to cost reduction really just kind of put it above and beyond. The red-blue marker leader, it's got a very nice strong effect, but the colors just don't have anything going for them together really. Like you've got the blue Sanji and Marco and things that can play stuff off the top of the deck by stacking, but it doesn't synergize with the red stuff. Like you can play the red stuff, but it just doesn't really synergize. Like yes, Ace is a very good card in that Marco deck, but it doesn't really synergize with anything. I think maybe if we get more good power-based removal, maybe there'll be something there, but again, it doesn't synergize with blue. It's just kind of like then you're running a red leader that has blue on top of it. So I don't know. Definitely a cool leader from OP08, but looking like I said, it's not performing right now. Maybe if we get some bans or restrictions, it has more potential. For the time being, it's just not going anywhere, unfortunately. So as far as your red stuff right now, I don't think there's anything you really need to pick up. I knew initially last time we did a market watch, we talked about Ace potentially being played in red purple law decks, as that is something we were seeing. However, it's looking like the most successful builds for law are not running the Ace. So if you're running law, I don't think this is a card you need to pick up. And then Newgate, you know, we just talked about the marker. The only other deck right now, Newgate is still okay. You can still run that. Also is the representative for the red reprint starter deck. So we could see Newgate start to pop back up if the support for that is good. But for the time being, the only decks that are running this Newgate are going to be Newgate and the red purple Luffy leader, which has been seeing a little bit of success in the current format. So maybe with some more support from OP07, like the 8-cost dragon, we could see red purple Luffy continue to perform. As far as our green stuff goes, Film Ucha is pretty solid right now, but I think going into the OP07 format, Film falls off pretty much entirely. I did see a Film Bonnie list do okay at some event, but I think there are better ways to build Bonnie, and I think Bonnie is just better than the mono green Uta leader that we have right now. So Bonnie already having a pretty tough matchup into black. I think Film Uta has an even worse matchup into it. The removal is still just very strong in the mono black, even with, you know, Sakazuki leaving the format. The removal in the game is still very strong right now. So for the time being, I don't think Film Uta is going to be seeing a whole lot of success going into OP07. So as far as green stuff goes, I don't really think there's too much you need to worry about picking up here. Maybe you want to pick up some carrots if you're looking forward to playing the carrot leader in OP08. But again, like I said, those OP08 leaders just not looking to be performing too well right now. For blue stuff, it's blue and pull down stuff. Ivankov got a little bit of support in EB. And, you know, I've seen some creators like Cross, very well known and reputable player, messing around a little bit with Ivankov, but I don't really think the deck has enough going for it right now to keep up with what else is in the format. The consistent card draw is nice, but I think a lot of the power of the deck is reliant on your 6-cost Inazuma from EB sticking on the board, which is still a big ask because, like I said, removal in the game is still very strong. But for blue stuff from OP02, I think you can pass on it. Probably can pass on everything for purple and O2 as well. The only one I want to comment on real quick is Magellan, goes for both the alternate art and regular. Mono purple Luffy is a deck that starts to come back a little bit in OP07 and OP08. So if you are a mono purple Luffy enjoyer, maybe you pick up some Magellans now if you don't have those in your collection. Maybe you sold them off once the deck fell off. Could be a good time to pick those back up again because the deck does look like it has legs. I think it has pretty good matchup into the mono black decks of the format with running a lot of those high cost or those 5 cost characters. They're able to spit out at a pretty high rate, can make it pretty difficult for the black decks to deal with. Magellan in particular can just throw off the whole mono black plan. They're very reliant on playing their curve well. And if you're able to mess with their curve, it can often just spell defeat for the mono black player. So I think mono purple Luffy, definitely a deck that has legs. One that I think we're going to start seeing to top again going back into the OP07 format. So I think Magellan could be a good pickup right now. But outside of Magellan, I don't think there's anything from purple you need to worry about from OP02. As far as black stuff goes from OP02, we are seeing, like we talked about last time, the Borsalinos are falling off pretty hard. I do think they start seeing a little bit more play just because they see play in the black-green Perona leader and that new Wano variant of the deck. So depending on how much success that deck sees, we could see the price on Borsalino start to go up again. But I think the format is more or less solved because we're getting this, format about 3 months after Asia did. Their OP07 format is already wrapped up. The Wano Perona looks good, but I don't think it's going to be, overtaking anything like Red Purple Law or Black Yellow Luffy. But still a very good card nonetheless. The Egghead Luffy and the Black Yellow can't deal with this, so it can be a pretty sticky blocker in that matchup. Kuzan also dropping down a little bit. So I think kind of my big takeaways for black from OP02 is the cards you're going to want to keep your eye on are actually going to be the 10-drop Kuzan. This card is seeing moderate amounts of play in Black Yellow Luffy. Some builds are running the 10-drop Kuzan, which might seem a little bit weird, but it's a big thing you can slam on curve. KO's a 5 cost on play. And then if it sticks, your Egghead Luffys are just doing an insane amount of work, essentially removing anything in the game outside of a 10 cost like Kuzan himself. But really, there aren't a lot of 10 costs seeing play right now, outside of maybe 10 cost Big Mom. But that card also, I think, falls off a little bit just because the mono yellow Katakuri leader does take, I think he more or less falls off into OP07. But I'm sure there will still be some players who opt to play it. But yeah, 10 cost Kuzan is a card that's been seeing some success in Black Yellow Luffy. So depending on how we decide to build our Black Yellow Luffys over here in the West, we could see the price on Kuzan go up a little bit as well. Sakazuki is another one. We talked about this one last time we did a market watch, if I recall. Gecko Moria is a deck that gets put in a little bit of a weird spot going into OP07. It is still a very strong leader, and I think even contests Lucci for the best mono black deck in OP07. But I think over here in the West, we did like the Gecko Moria deck a little bit more than they did in the East. So I would not be surprised if we still see a very large amount of Gecko Moria being played. And with that said, Sakazuki is one of those cards that makes its way into the Gecko Moria deck, as because of the Black Yellow Luffy matchup in particular, the deck has to change the way it's played quite a bit. So they're being a bit more of a tempo deck, just trying to play a good curve, still playing things like your 4-drop Kuzan, but then also playing things like the 6-drop Sakazuki as a way to KO a 5 cost without having to attack. That's kind of the big thing in a Black Yellow Luffy matchup, is that you don't generally want to attack into them early, which means you're not able to get a lot of value out of your leader effect early in the game. So you play cards like Sakazuki to help you fuel the trash as well as clear your opponent's board, which is pretty powerful. So I think I would keep your eyes on Sakazuki and Kuzan, and if you don't have either of those cards, maybe pick them up. Sakazuki if you're planning to play Gecko Moria going into the OP07 format, and potentially pick up 2 copies of the Kuzan if you're planning to play the Black Yellow Luffy, if that's something you want to play around with. That's it for OP02. On to OP03. For sealed product, we're seeing a bit of a price dip on this one as well. Again, not as much as OP01, but we are seeing a dip. For our leader cards, our OP03 leaders are actually dropping quite a bit because Katakuri does start seeing quite a bit less play, as I mentioned. And I think Nami just seeing less play as well. though still, you know, a popular leader, and some players are going to probably just play this deck forever because it's unlike any other deck in the game right now. As far as your leaders go, no, you know, nothing crazy to comment on here, just some price dips on those more expensive leaders from the set. On to our main set cards, starting things off with red. Wanted Luffy, still, you know, leading the pack for your mono red cards. Other than that, though, nothing really to speak on for red here. Again, like I said, obviously the 5-cost Marco is a good card for the blue-red Marco deck, but the deck is not doing well right now, so nothing crazy in terms of price there. For your green stuff, OP03 was a really bad set for green. You do have the Wanted Kid, which is a cool card, especially for collectors, but other than that, again, green from OP03, pretty bad. Honestly, for most colors, OP03 was a pretty underwhelming set. Yeah, same thing with blue. You got your Wanted, but everything here, you know, not relevant right now. You know, Kaya 2K is pretty good, but we do have a reprint of this in the current tournament packs, which I do think looks a little bit better than this one, and you can just get that by participating in your local events. Pilaf on the more expensive side for an uncommon, but still nothing super crazy to write home about. That's about it for blue. As far as purple goes, Wanted Kaido's one we could see jump back up in price again if Mono Purple Luffy does start to make a comeback, which I do think there is a good chance that it will. But other than that, nothing really to write home about here. I don't even know if the Mono Purple Luffy will run the Iceberg now. Because like I said, I think Mono Purple Luffy will make a bit of a comeback, but I'm not sure they're going to run this poly card anymore. Not as many good 4-cost anymore. I think a lot of what you want to be removing now is the 5-cost. Though I'm sure, you know, hitting the 4-cost in a deck like Red Purple All is good, so maybe it is still good, but I haven't looked too much into Mono Purple Luffy. I just know that it is starting to see some success again. So that's about it for purple. For black, I think the best cards right now to pick up from OP03 are in black, because we are getting the new CP0 Rob Lucci leader, so a lot of these old CP cards are going to become relevant again. Kaku going to be one of the best removal cards for that deck in particular. You got your Spandom Searcher and then the Khalifa 2K. As far as your, you know, base rarity stuff, nothing's too expensive. Kaku has gone up quite a bit. I want to say this card was like $1 not too long ago. Now we're looking at a bit closer to $6. But if you're someone who likes to alt your decks out, you're going to have to shell out a little bit more now, as the prices on these CP9 alts have gone up a little bit. So, I mean, makes sense. You're going to want to run the CP cards in the CP deck. But the Isho is also worth talking about here. Like I said, Gecko Moria I still think is one of the better decks in the format. And I guess this even goes for the CP0 Rob Lucci as well. I think this is one of the best cards you can run to help your Black-Yellow Luffy matchup. The mono black leaders have a very hard Black-Yellow Luffy matchup, and the 8-cost Isho does help a lot. Because like I said, you don't want to be attacking early in that leader. You want to force them to use their 2Ks to take their own life. Cards like Flampe, Hiyori. Force those cards out of their hands to slow down their game plan. Don't want them to get to 0 too quickly, so they can start activating their leader effect and becoming a 7 to 9k leader every turn. So Isho is a great card you can play on curve, especially if you get to go second. And because you're not attacking into your opponent's leader, there's a good chance they've got 6 or more cards in hand. So being able to strip down their hand size is one of the things that gives you a fighting chance in that matchup. So if you're planning to play black into OP07, I definitely think Isho is one you're going to want to pick up. Regular SR is only about $3 to $4 right now. And if you don't have them, I definitely think it's one you're going to want to have in your collection. And I do think there's a pretty good chance that going into OP07, we do see a rise in price for the Isho. As far as our yellow stuff goes, a lot of the big mon stuff I think kind of falls off because we're seeing a lot less play from our, mono yellow Katakuri. Maybe the big mon pirate stuff will make a bit of a comeback in OP08. As the purple yellow pudding leader is okay. Like I said, none of the 08 leaders seem exceptionally powerful relative to what's already in the game, but I do think pudding's one of the ones that's been seeing more success in in comparison to what, you know, was released in OP08. I think Calgara and Pudding are probably at the top there for playable leaders from OP08. So maybe we'll see a bit of a comeback with our Big Mom Pirates type stuff, but for the time being, it's taken a bit of a bit of a back seat for the OP07 format. We are seeing Katakuri start to jump up in price just a little bit again, and that's because NL is going to be a solid leader from in the OP07 format. Though I will say, I think we're going to see a lot less. Well, it's weird. I think we should see NL played a lot less in our format than they did over in the East. Because from what I can tell, NL does not really have any super good matchups in OP07, but it does yellow shenanigans, and sometimes that's just good enough. Over here in the West, we do like yellow a lot, so there's probably a good chance we still see a lot of people jump on the NL train. But I don't think NL is going to be exceptionally good this format like we were kind of initially thinking, just based on what was being played over in the East. From what I can tell, it is a fine deck, it is a viable deck, but there are definitely better options out there. However, with all that said, if you are planning to play NL, you definitely need to have 4 copies of your Secret Rare Katakuri from OP03. But if you're not planning to play NL, I would sell your Katakuris now, maybe wait a little bit, see if they go up a little bit more on release, but I don't think you need to hold on to your Katakuris if you're not planning to play yellow going into the OP07 format. That's it for OP03. On to OP04. Sealed product, pretty stagnant for OP04. It's about the same price as it's been, maybe even up a little bit from last time we checked. It does make sense. OP04, while it was an underwhelming set on release, as I said before in past market watches, definitely one of the sets that are appreciated a little better, with more of those cards becoming relevant as time goes on. However, as far as our leaders go, it's probably one of the worst, if not the worst set for leaders. It's the first set with only 6 leaders, and I think of those sets with only 6 leaders, this was the most underwhelming lineup of leaders. But maybe that's just me. OP05 leaders have taken a bit of a hit as well, so we'll take a little bit of a look at that here in just a minute. As far as our red stuff goes, nothing outrageous in terms of price movement that you need to keep your eye on here. Like I said, maybe if Marco ends up we finding a build for Marco that works and it's running Newgate, you could see your SP go up. But outside of that, nothing here is all that relevant. So nothing for red you need to be concerned about for OP04. As far as green stuff goes, if you're planning to play Bonnie, you're probably going to want to pick up some copies of the 10-drop Doflamingo. Maybe the 8-drop Corazon, depending on how you want to build your deck. I know in the early Bonnie builds, they were seeing success running the 8-drop Corazon. However, as time went on, it looked like the more optimal way to play the deck was just to keep running 8-cost Kid. It's probably the best card green has at their disposal right now. So, you know, that's kind of a personal preference thing. If you want to mess around with the Corazon, by all means, it's a cheap enough card, and I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. But if you're looking to be a little bit more competitive, probably just stick with the 8-cost Kid. So maybe if you're on a bit of a budget, Corazon's the way to go. Still make a strong deck with Bonnie, but you don't have to shell out that $35 we were looking at earlier for the 8-cost Kid. Law SP, I mean, it's still $60, but Law is not seeing a whole lot of play right now. I don't think there's any decks in the current format that are actually utilizing Law right now, which is a bit sad to see, as it is one of the most fun cards to play in my opinion. Being able to bounce something back and play something else is very fun. And another thing to keep in mind here is that we do know in that reprint set, can't remember exactly what it's called, like FBER01 or something, I don't know, some weird like 3-letter thing. But the reprint set, we do know we're getting another alternate art for the Law, so that may be also something we need to take into consideration when looking at the price on the Law as well. As far as blue stuff goes, the SP Boa is still holding strong. If you look back to when we were in the OP01 blue cards, the 4-cost Boa alternate art from OP01 has actually taken a pretty big hit in price. And not so long ago, the SP and the alternate from OP01 were right there neck and neck in price, but as time's gone on, the SP has continued to hold value, whereas the alternate art has kind of dropped in value quite a bit, which, I mean, if you were holding on your OP01 alt, is a bit unfortunate, but a little bit surprised by how much value the SP Boa Hancock has held. It is a very nice looking card, don't get me wrong, but just still a little bit surprised that it is almost getting close to double the price of the OP01 alternate art. But I mean, unless you're a collector looking to pick up a boa, I don't think there's anything you need to worry about for blue from OP04. Of course, you know, if you're planning to play the Boa Hancock, I do think you'll want to have some copies of Red Rock, but in terms of, you know, actual market price fluctuations, Red Rock is not seeing any substantial movement right now. For purple stuff, the Missile Sunday is actually worth mentioning here, as it has seen a bit of a price increase as a result of Red Purple Law starting to play. I want to say it's pretty standard now for Red Purple Law to play 2 copies of the Missile Sunday. I think this is one of the flex spots the deck has, but it's looking to become pretty standard at this point. It's just a 5 cost 5k. A little bit harder for those black decks to deal with, being a 5 cost, as well as ramping you and replacing itself by drawing you cards. Nice. Trigger doesn't come up too often, but just kind of a pretty nice tempo play for the Red Purple Law deck. Pretty nice on 6 Dawn as well. If you don't need to play like a blocker or something, you can just play this out, replaces itself. If you're on 6, you can play a Gordon or Rise Max as well. Use your leader effect, and because you ramped off this, the Dawn minus on your leader effect isn't as hurtful moving forward later into the game, which is quite nice. And I think just being able to maintain hand size is one of the biggest things that Red Purple All decks needs, and this is a deck that can help, or this is a card that can help you with that. I already talked about Magellan and OP02, so same thing applies here to the SP. I think we could see a rise in price if Mono Purple Luffy starts seeing success again, as I do really think that this Magellan card can be pretty pulverizing into the black decks, and even potentially Black Yellow Luffy is a pretty obnoxious card to offset their curve. Outside of that though, nothing really worth mentioning as far as purple cards from OP04 go. So for your black stuff, of course Sabo's still good. We talked a little bit about Sakazuki and OP02 potentially being a good addition to Gecko Moria decks in order to help their tempo against some of the decks like Black Yellow Luffy. Another card I think is worth mentioning though is the 7 cost Monkey D. Luffy from OP04. Right now there have not been any fluctuations on the price for this card. However, as we've been saying, I think black decks are trying to build themselves in a way where they have the best chance possible against Black Yellow Luffy, as it is probably the deck's worst matchup for all of the mono black decks. And this 7 cost Monkey D. Luffy is a card that some decks have been trying out and seeing some success with over in the East as a way to combat the Black Yellow Luffy deck. Luffy having the ability to essentially attack twice when you untap with it is pretty nice. So if your opponent doesn't have multiple Sabo blockers out, this could be a pretty nice way to get yourself in there and close out the game. If they've only got one blocker up, you can just put 10 down on this, swing 17 twice, and even with a 9k leader, typically their hand's not too big, so that's probably going to be enough to get you there. So it's a card that's been seeing some play, so depending on what we see do well over here in the West, once the OP07 format goes live, potentially could see a rise in price for the mono black Luffy. But if it's something you want to play around with, the regular SR is under $1 right now, so I think it's worth picking up a couple copies of this one, just if it's something you want to have in your toolbox to play around with. As far as yellow goes, of course beige still one of the best cards in the game, and the alternate art is relatively cheap. You're definitely going to want your Yamatos if you're planning to play NL. However, like I said when we were talking about Katakuri, unless you're planning to play NL, I don't think you need the Yamatos. No other decks, from what I can tell, are running this right now. It's very good in the NL deck, but like I said, I think the NL deck, in all honesty, is going to be a bit underwhelming for what a lot of people are thinking. I think there are just better options for decks to play right now. But if you like playing yellow decks, NL's probably your best bet going into OP07. So you are, of course, going to want your Yamatos. And right now, the regular SR still only being $5 is pretty nice. So if you don't have those, I'd say that's probably a good pickup, because I'd say there's a good chance they still go up in price, while NL I don't think is going to be, you know, best deck in format or even in contention for top 3, top 5. It's still going to be a solid deck in the format that a lot of people are probably going to be picking up. So I would not be surprised if we see the price on the Yamato go up a bit. You know, your beige or rare, for a rare from OP04 is rather expensive, but still nothing to really write home about. There was a point in time where it was a little bit higher, averaging about $2 right now, though is pretty good for a rare. So if you've got some OP04 bulk, maybe you want to go through that, get rid of some of your extra capones. But Sanji's falling off, not really seeing play on that one anymore. And then, you know, none of the other yellow cards here are all that relevant. So the big ones here are your Yamato and then your alternate arts for beige and Yamato. I think those ones could go up. Only thing I think is ever going to play with the price on beige if this is a card that gets banned, which in all honesty I could see happening someday, but I feel like that's a bit of a hot take for some people. Personally, I think this is just a poorly designed card. Just being a 2K makes it a card that any yellow deck can run, and then having a trigger that just sometimes says, oops, I win the game, is a little bit silly, but maybe that's just me. For OP05, sealed product, it went up and it's coming back down, but overall, when you're looking at the big picture, not a lot of change there for sealed product. For your leader cards, like I said, only just a little bit better than OP04 following the ban of Sakazuki. I do think Mono Purple Luffy is a good pickup right now. It is a Luffy leader. Luffy being the protagonist of the series, I think just inherently gives him value. We are also getting the PSA version of this card though, so I guess for some people that's going to become like the max rarity version of the leader. Very awesome art on that one. If you were able to pick up a subscription to the PSA pop culture, whatever it was a bit expensive, being $150 for an annual subscription to get that, but I personally ended up doing it just because I wanted the Luffy card, and maybe I'll end up getting some cards graded now. But NL being the most expensive of your OP05 leaders, and I could see that one going up a little bit more as well going into OP07. As far as red stuff goes, SP Nami is definitely still up there, though it is only a fraction of the price of the OP01 alternate art. Outside of that though, nothing here really to write home about. Maybe if I did see a Red Yellow Sabo list do well. I was actually watching the Twitch stream. I can't remember the name of the streamer, but if I find it, I'll link him down in the comments below. He went 8-2 with Red Yellow Sabo, and I believe his deck was running a couple copies of this card. That deck's a lot of fun, and if it's one you want to play around with, I think, you know, having a couple copies of the Koala definitely doesn't hurt. And we are also getting the Dragon Leader in OP07, so if you want to play around with the Revolutionary Army stuff, maybe not the worst pickups out there. For your green stuff, Yamato SP, of course, leading the pack, but your other green stuff, not really seeing any play right now. Initially, I think there was some hype for the Baby 5 when Bonnie was running more that Don Quixote Supernova hybrid. That was very early in the OP07 format over in the East, though, and since then it's looking like just kind of a straight Supernova version has kind of taken over and become the more optimal version to play the deck. We don't think there's really anything you need to be worried about picking up from OP05. No real price fluctuations here, except the SPs are dropping a little bit as time goes on. Same thing with blue. Now that Sakazuki's gone, Borsalino is just pretty mediocre card. Maybe it's something you could play around with in Boa Hancock as just a way to remove a body, get a big guy on board. The only matchup where I feel like this card would be relevant is against Sabo, and this card might just be a little bit too slow into that deck, but maybe it's something you could play around with. I'm not too sure. Like I said, I haven't looked too much into deck list for the mono blue Boa Hancock, but maybe there's some potential there with that one. I think the Secret Rare Kaido, in all honesty, is still a pretty good card. So if you don't have them, maybe pick these up, because I feel like someday we're going to get some good blue support. Just having a 10 drop 12k draw 4 is really nice, especially if you're in a even to advantageous position. This card can really just put you ahead and seal the game for you. For your purple stuff, we already talked about our manga rares. SP Uta, I feel like slowly dropping down in price as well. Monkey D. Luffy dropping a little bit as well for your alternate art. A little bit surprised with how low Kid is, to be honest. I would think with this being a 4 of and just about every red purple all deck, this one would be seeing a little bit more play. Potentially could still see it go back up in price, as red purple law is only getting better, and there is that potential that mono purple Luffy come back, and they will also of course be running this card. Zoro Juro, we're seeing this one go up in price a little bit, dropping back down a little bit now, but definitely want to keep your eye on, and maybe one I would pick up if you want to ult out your red purple all deck. I think this is a card that has a lot more potential now because Sakazuki is no longer in the format. A little bit harder for most decks to deal with this on curve. So being able to play this out on curve going first does allow for some pretty nice plays in the red purple all deck, because going first you aren't able to play a 5-drop and a Gordon or Rise Max because you need 6 Dawn to do that. However, with the Zoro, while you won't be able to get an attack off into the leader, you can just attack into their leader for the natural 4k, or potentially swing into something else that's rested on board. So if you're going first, I don't think, well, there might be, but this actually puts you on 6 Dawn, because you play this on 3, you go to 5, you attack, go to 6. The one thing to keep in mind here though is you do have to have 3 or less lives, so if your opponent decides not to attack into you, it does kind of mess with your game plan there. So just something to keep in mind with that. But I think playing it into, like, even on curve against Gecko Moria can put them in a weird spot, because generally they want to be using their leader effect on their first turn, but this might kind of put them in a position where they don't want to if they're not able to remove it on their first turn. So I think Zoro's deck or a card that has a lot of potential in red purple law moving forward now that Sakazuki is no longer in the format. Outside of that though, don't think there's anything you need to be too concerned about picking up. And again, with the Zoro, that's only if you want the alternate art. Your regular rare is super cheap. So if you just, want to play base rarity, not concerned with alts, just pick up the base rarity. But I do think the 3-cost alternate art could be a good investment right now. And then we already talked about Kid, but the regular SR is only about $4 or $5 right now. Could see it go up though, so if you don't have those, you want to play Law or Pluffy into OP07, I would probably pick those up now. As far as black stuff goes, I think Lucci could potentially go up in price, and that goes for both the regular and alternate art. CP deck's obviously going to run 4 copies of this card. One of the best black cards in the game, in my opinion, especially good into decks like red purple law. Being able to clear 2 cards with 1 body is very nice, especially when the condition for that effect is just to bottom deck 2 cards, or bottom deck 3 cards. Pretty easy to condition to fulfill, especially for that OP07 Rob Lucci leader, being able to trash 2 cards just for attacking. In conjunction with the 0-cost event, or the 1-cost event that we get for CP and OP07 alongside stage, it's very easy for this card to clear multiple bodies in the red purple law matchup, which is extremely valuable. Rebecca, of course, still a very good card. Your regular SR is only $3. If you're planning to play black, definitely gonna want to have 4 copies of your Rebecca. Maybe you don't play 4 copies in your Gecko Moria, but definitely if you're planning to play Rob Lucci, I think you're gonna want to have 4 copies of the Rebecca. At least 3 copies for sure. Card's just too good, especially with the addition of the Spandine you got in EB01. An LSP, again, all your SP cards are dropping down quite a bit. Not so long ago, this one was still about $100. So nice to see these ones coming down in price. So if you're a collector like myself and you hadn't yet picked these up, I think now is probably a good time to do so. Like I said, yellow, I mean, black yellow Luffy, obviously very, very good, but the mono yellow NL, he's okay. He's going to run Gadatsu, probably going to run the Russian L. But for the most part, I think, you know, people are straying away from yellow moving forward, which is nice because it's a very obnoxious deck to play against. Still a solid deck, but I think you can see this being reflected in the prices that people are starting to take a step back from yellow. Gadatsu, very, very good card, but the alternate art has just been slowly dropping as time goes on. That is it for OP05. Let's talk about OP06. As far as sealed product goes, we are dropping here as well, and many stores have been getting another shipment of OP06. So if you weren't able to pick up sealed product, definitely check your LGS. Hopefully they're selling it at MSRP and you're able to pick up some sealed product for that. For leaders, they're all dropping. I mean, Reiju, I think, took probably the biggest hit here just because this deck really isn't very playable with red purple law being so dominant. Could see Perona go up in price a little bit. We are seeing it just go down and down and down, but if the Wano build starts seeing success over here in the West, I would not be surprised to see it go up a little bit. Yamato slowly just been trending downward, which is, I think, good to see. I think this card was a little bit overvalued. A lot of people just super hyped for a Yamato leader and they wanted to play that. The deck is okay, but I think it, again, kind of falls off going into OP07. So maybe you can still do okay with it, but I have not seen this deck performing too much in OP07. Gecko Moria dropped quite a bit, but depending on how we adapt over here in the West, I could honestly see this leader going back up in price. I think Gecko Moria has been a very popular leader over here in the West, and I still think it was a little underrepresented in the Eastern OP07 format, so I would not be at all surprised if we see Gecko Moria stay more relevant over here in the West. As far as our red cards go, nothing super crazy to write home about, though your red purple law deck I do think is running 4 copies of Shiraya now. Most decks were already running 3 to 4 copies, but I think definitely you're running 4 copies now. This card is just too good in the black yellow Luffy matchup, and is one of the cards that you definitely need to see in that matchup in particular. Other than that, though, nothing you really need to write home about red. I've been playing around a little bit with the Shanks and red purple Luffy, but that's not a super popular deck. Definitely more of a rogue option, but I think there's potential there, and the 10-drop Shanks is a pretty good fit for that deck. For your green stuff, Zoro's pretty good fit for Bonnie, as well as maybe even potentially the Hody Jones. Is just a nice way to get around blockers at endgame, and then have a rushing 8k attacker is pretty good. Zoro, I think this is a card you're definitely gonna want to have a couple copies of if you're planning to play Bonnie, though. But outside of the Hody and Zoro, I don't think there's anything you need to be too worried about. Regular SR Hody's only $3. Secret rare Zoro is about $24 right now, which is a little bit high in my opinion, but I think Bonnie is going to be a pretty popular deck over here in the West, so wouldn't be surprised to even see this one go up a little bit more if I'm being totally honest with you. Your alternate art on the Hody Jones, though, has been dropping down a little bit, so if you have been waiting to pick this one up, now is probably a good time to do it, because I think this is, with Bonnie, it's going to be the best green's been in a little while. So if you're a green player, and now is probably your time to see some success with green. So I would probably pick up a couple copies of the Hody if you're looking to alt your stuff out. But if not, regular SR is only $3, and that is very reasonable. As far as blue stuff goes, everything here is pretty bad. As much as I love this Sanji card, and was hoping it would be good in the Marco Leader. The Marco Leader just not been seeing a whole lot of success, as we've mentioned. Tashigi, now that Sakazuki's banned, this card is basically irrelevant, as Mono Blue Navy just is not worth playing. Gravity Blade, we could see this one go up a little bit if Boa ends up seeing some outstanding amounts of success, but I think it's probably going to settle about where it is now. It has gone up a little bit. It's about $1 right now, which for a rare from the most recent set is on the higher side for sure. For purple stuff, Missile Sunday went up. We already talked about the alternate art Missile Sunday from OP07, so all the same things apply to the SP. It's seeing play in Red Purple Law. Reiju, also a very popular card in Red Purple Law, so that being the reason the Reiju is on the higher side. All your other Germa stuff fell off once EB01 dropped, just because Red Purple Law is too good. And is definitely a card you have to keep an eye on. So unfortunately, Reiju as a deck just not able to keep up anymore, but the Reiju card itself still very, very good. And if you're planning to play Red Purple Law, you're definitely going to want this one. I don't imagine this card's going to go back up in price, but depending on how much play and success Red Purple Law sees over here in the West, we could see this one go up a little bit more. But I think, the deck is already in such a good position, and the people that want to play it have already picked up the cards for it, that you're probably not going to see much of a fluctuation on price for this one. For your black stuff, Gecko Moria, still one of the best cards in the game. SP Rebecca, it just looks better than the alternate art Rebecca, so if you really want to be a max rarity gamer, definitely going to want 4 copies of this one. But your other Thriller Bark stuff has dropped in price a little bit. However, like I said, I would not be surprised if Gecko Moria makes a bit more of a comeback here. So, just something to keep in mind there. But we'll definitely have to wait and see kind of how our format ends up developing. I'm kind of placing my bets on Gecko Moria still being a very relevant deck for the Western format in OP07 though. Your yellow stuff, Hiyori, obviously very, very good. A mandatory card in Black Yellow Luffy. Other than that, nothing super crazy here. The Onami is pretty good in Enel. Zero cost is a broken card for yellow as well. But as far as like price fluctuations go, which is kind of what we're looking at, nothing really to write home about here. We did see kind of once Starter Deck 13 release there, right around April, I want to say it was April 21st, we did see a jump in price for Hiyori, but we are slowly dropping back down in price. However, because Black Yellow Luffy does become one of, if not the best decks in the format going into OP07, wouldn't be surprised if we see Hiyori make another jump in price as we move into the OP07 format. So that's it for OP06. On EB01, I'm going to try and speed things along. We are getting a little bit long here, but it has been a bit of a minute since I did one of these, so I hope you bear with me on that. EB01 leaders are all bad, and while they all look pretty good in my opinion, they're just not worth anything. But if you're a collector like myself, go ahead and pick these up. They're cheap. For your red stuff, Kid Killer is an absurdly good card. Even the rare still being about $3 right now is pretty crazy. And even your SRs from EB01 have started to climb back up in price a little bit. Chopper was around $5 and we're up at closer to $8 now. So we are seeing some rises there. I think Chopper is another one of those card that is another good potential option for Red Purple Law in the current or in the OP07 format. I think kind of one of the decision points is whether you want to run this card or the 3-cost Purple Zoro we mentioned from OP05. So I think this is one of the decision points for that deck. But other than that, nothing crazy here. Chopper, maybe a card you're gonna want to pick up. Kid Killer, definitely want to have a place out of this. If you're planning to play really any red deck, this card is just too good to not play in most red decks. For green stuff, if you're planning to play Bonnie, you'll probably want a couple copies of Cavendish. SR, this one's been fairly steady. I guess it's gone up a little bit as well. It was initially about $5 and has since climbed back up about $7 right now. Still not too bad for an SR. And then the Hiyori, you know, you've got a regular rare, which is nothing, but if you want to ult your stuff out, Hiyori is definitely a mandatory card if you're going to play around with the green black Perona, which, depending on how much success it sees here, could definitely see this card going up in price. So, you know, if you're going to want to play around with the Perona, I'd recommend picking up the Hiyori now. Blue stuff, EB blue cards are just doo-doo. You know, I guess if you want to play Ivankov, cool, but these cards outside of that are cheeks. Weevil's good in Dofi, but Dofi, like I said, still not super good, but maybe the support from the new starter deck will help it out. Secret Rare Bond Clay, if you're planning to play any purple deck for the most part, except for maybe red purple Luffy, I think you're probably going to want to have 4 copies of this card. So if you're a big purple gamer, definitely going to want to pick up your copies of Bond Clay. They are dropping in price just a little bit. They were a little bit closer to $50 on release, so might be a good time to pick those up. However, I will say this card does not see play in red purple law into OP08. I think the Black Maria just kind of allows the deck to play in such a way that they don't need the ramp cards like Iron and Bond Clay that they were running before, but still a very good purple card outside of that. But I think the Black Maria card might just be a little too good. Would not be surprised if that card gets banned or some form of errata. The alternate for Bond Clay, everything I just said for the regular applies. And then as far as your other rares and SRs from EB, nothing really to talk about here. I mean, you play VV if you're playing the red purple or the purple yellow crocodile, but outside of that, not very good. Brook is an extremely good card, and we are seeing the price on the SR on this one jump quite a bit. This one was only about $3 on release, a little bit closer to $9 now. To be honest, I don't see the price on that one fluctuating too much. I wouldn't even be surprised if the alternate art goes up a little bit more. We are sitting at only 24 listings right now, and because this is a card that is played in most mono black decks, I don't just want to say black decks because decks like Black Yellow Luffy do not run this, but that deck's kind of its own thing, so what I say about black doesn't necessarily apply to that deck. But Brook's an exceptionally good card for mono black decks. Definitely one you're going to want to have in your collection if you're planning to play black. Your alternate T-Bone has taken a pretty big hit, and that's because the only deck that was really running this is Sakazuki, and that deck is banned now. Spandine, I could honestly see the price on this one going up because it's a pretty solid card in the CP0 Rob Lucci deck. It's a 3-cost card, which means this is a card you can grab from the trash with Rebecca and play out for free. And this card essentially just lets you play out a 4-cost CP for free. So allows you to fill your board really, really quickly with Rebecca. And the main 4-cost target you're going to be hitting with this is, of course, going to be that 4-cost Rob Lucci from OP05. So just allows you to essentially break the Rebecca Lucci combo even further. So just something to keep in mind there. As far as yellow stuff goes, Flampe is an exceptionally good card. Again, kind of like with the Kid Killer for a rare, still being $2 or $3 right now is pretty crazy in my opinion. But you know, you're going to play this card in now, but the big one here is this card gets played in the Black Yellow Luffy deck. One of the main ways you take your life early if your opponent is not attacking into you early, which if you're playing in a high level competitive setting, more often than not, your opponent is probably not going to be attacking into you early. So you do need ways to take your own life in the early to mid game in order to set up your leader effect for the late game. One card that I do think does have a little bit more room to shine in the OP07 format is actually this 2-cost Shirahoshi as a blocker option for yellow. Like I said, the only mono yellow leader that is super relevant in the OP07 format, from what I can tell, is NL. And I do think this is a card that you can consider running now because Sakazuki is no longer in the format. bottom decking effects, we're just easily able to answer this, and with Sakazuki being the best deck in the format, I think it was a bit difficult to play this card in the EV format just purely because they got answered by Sakazuki so easily. But now that bottom deck is not as prevalent, I do think there is more room for the Shirahoshi to be a sticky blocker. Essentially, your opponent can't remove it, because if they do, you get to heal. So definitely set your opponent back. But that is it for our main sets in EB. Quickly going to talk about some starter deck stuff. I never really talk about the super purely starter deck leaders, so I just wanted to quickly talk about those. They're actually all coming down in price, with the exception of one of them. So Luffy's come back down in price, was close to $200 at one point. Now we're looking at about $110. Your Eustace is about $40 right now, again coming down. This one does not drop nearly as much as the Luffy, was only about $60 initially. Crocodile, 50 down to 25, 26. And that just leaves Kaido, which is the only one that has gone up, was about $40, and now we're looking at a bit closer to $70. And the only reason I can think that the price on this one would go up so much is that OP08 does some crazy things for Purple Animal Kingdom, namely the Black Maria card, which I have already talked about. Maybe we're actually going to do a video on that card and just kind of take a look at the OP08 format, because that card is a problem, I do think, or at least in its current state. So definitely something you're gonna want to take into account. But I definitely think that Black Maria card does give the mono purple Katakuri deck some leg, or mono purple Kaido deck some legs. Queen still relatively expensive, especially for a starter deck card. It does actually get an SP in OP08, so maybe that will bring down the price a little bit, give people a higher rarity option to run. Don't want to see max rarity, because we do have the Treasure Cup variant for the absolute maniacs out there who want to run that. Gecko Moria from starter deck 3 has also been going up in price as well. Like I said, Dofi's been seeing a little bit of hype, and a lot of this might be a result of a user and creator. You might see them on Twitter. They go by, I believe, Weemy Bear. Big Doflamingo player. And she's kind of, I don't want to say trolling on Twitter, but she's very active on Twitter and definitely likes to mess around a little bit. I'm actually going to be doing a stream with them along with some other creators. We already did one stream. It's going to be hosted by Mushroom Man. I will link his YouTube down in the video description. But I believe not this coming Friday, but the Friday after that, we're going to do a stream with myself, Weemy, Azarif, the GOAT of One Piece trading card game content, as well as Card Kaizaku, the other GOAT of One Piece trading card game content. And we're just going to do a little tournament. Hopefully I didn't forget anyone. There's 5 of us: Mushroom Man, me, Azarif, Weemy, and Card Kaizaku. Yeah, that's everyone. I will try and remember to link all of their socials and whatnot down in the video description, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But Weemy, I think, kind of bringing the mono blue Dofi movement into action, so might be seeing a little bit more of that moving forward. This is probably the weirdest card I found in terms of price movement, and it is the Straw Sword from Starter Deck 2. Is at $6 right now. This is a 2 of, so it is one of the cards that has more room to be expensive, but I'm not too sure why. I know that Cross was playing around with a Yamato deck that was running a couple copies of the Straw Sword just as a way to bypass any blocker. There were some, I feel like initially it was playing around with Paradise Tatsuka, but that card only got up to a 4 cost. The only plus side being that it only cost 1, but I think the 2 cost option, being able to rest anything, was just quite a bit better. So he was running that in a build. I watched him play on stream a time or two. So other than that, I'm not too sure why this card's gone up in price. So if I'm missing something, be sure to let me know down in the comments below. And then as for our starter deck 13, most of our alternate arts have dropped in price. The only thing I want to say here is that they may go back up in price in OP07, because I think that's when Black Yellow Luffy really starts to become a very dominant meta threat. So definitely keep your eye on these if you're planning to ult out your Black Yellow Luffy deck. As far as promo goes, Gordon is still expensive, not anywhere near as expensive as it was last time we checked when he was about 55 bucks, but still way too much for a promo card. I definitely think this card, I'm personally still of the opinion that this card needs to be banned. I don't think Red Purple Law needs to have the ability to run 8 copies of this card in their deck. And I know you could just reprint this card, but it still doesn't help the problem that I don't think Red Purple Law should have 8 copies of this card in their deck. And I think that kind of fixes the issue there is with this card being so expensive and just some of the potential OP-ness that Red Purple Law has. So the premium collection binder is about 60 bucks right now. So while you were able to pre-order these for 25, they are $60 right now, which is about double. But to be honest, if you look at some of the cards, just like one by one, if you're planning to pick up, you know, a playset of multiple of these cards, I think it's probably just more worth your money to pick up some of these premium binders, even at a slightly inflated price. You know, I'm sure a lot of you didn't know this was a thing or weren't even playing the game when pre-orders for this went up. The premium Bandai stuff is awful done like half a year in advance. So you pre-order it and then you don't get anything for several months, and then it randomly shows up after lots of shipping delays. But I don't know, 60 bucks still doesn't seem too bad for me. Personally, if these were 50 bucks, I probably still would have ordered 4 of them from Premium Bandai. So being that they're 60 bucks still seems pretty reasonable, I want to say. The cards all look phenomenal if you haven't gotten to take a look at them in person. For our Dawn cards, the big one I wanted to talk about here is the Celebration Pack Dawn. This one's actually gone up a lot in price recently. Definitely glad I got a whole set of those when they were only about 30-40 bucks. Your Straw Hat Dawns are maybe slowly going up in price. Gear 5 Dawns actually dropped quite a bit in price, so if you're going to pick those up, might be a good time to do it. As far as your winter cards go, nothing super serious to write home about here. Bonnie could go up as a high rarity option. Bonnie Searcher, though we do have the Celebration Pack version, which is so much better looking in my opinion, though you do have a price you gotta pay if you're looking to pick up a copy of this one. And other than that, nothing too much to talk about here. And then we are starting to see some Event Pack 4 cards hit the market. The Sabo and Momonosuke. Avoid these cards right now. There will be plenty of events, and much like the Zoro and the Yamato, these cards will drop down in price over time. They are not exceptional playable cards, but if you want them for your collection, just wait. They will come down in price. And that just leaves us with one last thing to say, and that is, do not buy the pre-sales. OP07 does release here in just about 3 weeks, I want to say, 2 or 3 weeks. And just wait till then, because if you don't know, buying the pre-sales does not mean you're going to get the cards any earlier. They are not able to ship them until the official release date. So just wait till the official release date and buy your cards then. Already got some people buying these cards at an extremely inflated price. I'm sure Ace will still be on the more expensive side, but you do not need to be spending $60 a pop on the Ace. You do not need to be spending $30 a pop on the Luffy. This will likely be I would say at most $8 card if we're looking at SRs from other main sets. So yeah, Kaku is not going to be a $10, rare. And like I said, buying the pre-sales is not going to get you these cards any sooner. So just wait until the official release, have your cart ready to go, and then buy your cards on release day. You're not going to get them any sooner by buying pre-sales, I promise. So just wait until the official release, save yourself some money. Don't support this tomfoolery here. Just wait, don't buy the pre-sales. This was a long video, but it's been a while, so I hope you bear with me through this. Let me know what you think of the new format for how I kind of did things. If you have suggestions, please let me know. I am a teacher and I am on summer break, so I have all the time in the world right now to mess around with content, and I'm more than happy to listen and hear out your suggestions. So please let me know what you think about the video. What can I do to improve? I've got several months to really work on my content, get things down, and I want to know what you think. So please let me know down in the comments below. It really would mean a lot to me. But with all that said, I'm sure most of you didn't stick through the whole thing, but if you did, thank you so much for watching. Really, your support really does mean a lot to me. With all that said, I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.